I have the pleasure of introducing our First Lady. And the pleasure and the honor. You know, I could sit here and read a bio of all of her accomplishments, but really what I wanted to do was just pull out some highlights of the journey of a long-time distant runner for social transformation. Because that's what we're talking about. Right? Organizing for change, you need to become a distant runner. You cannot just say, we're going to do something today like an initiative, a campaign, or a project. Right, Ron? Our First Lady began her life in Massachusetts, in a predominantly white community where she experienced deep discrimination. Her family was the second family to live in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and that community actually petitioned to get that family moved out. In an interview I read, you can see I read a lot to see what I could pull out to. You shared that racism and bullying was the reason why you started to write poetry, because you had that anger in you and you needed a way to express that. And then when you were in high school, I guess, you started a column in the newspaper, right? Newspaper column, and you just gave it to them about racism. So our First Lady experienced the first, the only black family in the community, the first black student in the high school. And we all know what happens when people have that break of belonging. And the last quote I'll say, and I won't quote you again, is, "I never had a deep sense of belonging anywhere. I always felt like an outsider." Shalane McRae. Following her graduation from Wesley College, she had an incredibly interesting and creative life. She enjoyed a brilliant career as a writer, an editor, a poet, a communications professional. In 1991, Shalane McRae entered politics. She worked as a speechwriter for David Dinkins. During the Clinton administration, she worked for the New York Foreign Press Center as a public affairs specialist. She also worked as a speechwriter for State Controller Carl McCall and then City Controller Bill Thompson. In 1991, she met Bill de Blasio while working at City Hall and unexpectedly fell in love and married in 1994. She has become known as the mastermind behind the political success of Bill de Blasio's win for the New York City Council, public advocate, and finally the political upset when they won the race for mayor. Organizing for change. She is a political figure in her own right. We are grateful to the First Lady and Mayor de Blasio for committing years and years of their marriage and their collective advocacy for a better New York, and for bringing forth a progressive voice for change. Thank you so much for taking on the tough issues of affordable housing, homelessness, educational equity, reduced income disparities, and your recent campaign to expand mental health for all New Yorkers. Yeah. I just want to say that yours is the quintessential New York City family. When your family gets up together and they're cheering their victory, every single one of us could see a part of ourselves in your family. You know, it's so awesome, right? Is that true? Just so awesome. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing and mostly for taking the time for being with us here tonight. Please come up.
I didn't know I was going to get when I walked in here, did I? This is so wonderful. I could feel it, the culture of caring for each other, for the work that you do. It's overwhelming, it really is. And boy, do you need it, because you got a mandate that is tough. It's really tough. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Sandy, for that introduction. Thank you for devoting your life to dismantling racial inequity, for dismantling racism and your work for social justice. Thank you for all of it. It's, just applaud her, please, just applaud her. And I'm out of breath. So, I also want to give a big shout out to Dr. Robert Schachter, who's celebrating his 25th anniversary as your executive director. And let's show some love for the dynamo who put this wonderful event together. Christina Perez, chair of the event committee. Stand up, Christina, stand up. I can't tell you how delighted I was to receive this invitation. Because in my household, social workers are a big deal. For so many reasons. I'm not going to tell you all the reasons tonight, but trust me, you're a big deal. And I'm going to share, actually we have some family news I want to share with you tonight. I think it's only appropriate that you're the first to know, or among the first to know. Our daughter Kiara has informed us that she wants to be a social worker. Needless to say, Bill and I are very proud, very proud. This past summer, she interned at a health agency where she got to see some of the work that you do firsthand, and she absolutely loved it. Every night she came home with stories about how her coworkers connected with some troubled young person, or how they moved heaven and earth to help someone who had nowhere else to turn. And before the internship was over, she was hooked. After she graduates, her plan is to come back to New York, which is good news for Bill and I. And she wants to get her master's in social work. And one day, in the not so distant future, she may be a proud NASW member. Now, I'm going to say it the way she said it. I talked to her tonight. She said, "Mom, no, I'm very firm about my career." She said, "I will be a member of the National Association of Social Workers." So like many of you, Kiara's passion for social work is rooted in personal experience. A few years ago, she revealed to Bill and I that she was suffering from anxiety, depression, and addiction. And it was such a tough time. It was so painful. I wish that I could hold her and hug her and just make it all go away. I felt everything you'd think a mother would go through, like sadness, love, uncertainty, fear, all at once. There was so much emotion. It was such a shock to me because this was a girl who's, like, she did really well in school. I only knew she was always a little underperforming, but she did well. Any parent would be proud of that performance. She had friends. She had lots of friends. She was beloved. But there was a lot of pain inside of her, and we didn't know. And I felt like, how is that possible? How did I miss the signs? Here's our child, again, in terrible pain. And because the pain was in her brain and not in another part of her body, I didn't know what to do. There are no established steps. You go online, like, what do I do? I did not know. Bill and I had to trust the recommendations of people we didn't really know. And we had to make some major decisions based on, really, faith. Faith and the fact that these are people, some of the people that we do respect. But it's a really tough thing to put the life of your child to the hands of of people you don't really have a deep relationship with. Now, our family got lucky. We found enough of what we were looking for, enough, because it wasn't ideal, but it was enough. And we found great people like you. People like all of you, who cared, really cared, and helped our daughter regain her mental equilibrium. Now, it's a journey. It's like not over. But I'm really happy to say that Kiara is kicking butt at recovery. And it gives me so much happiness to say that she's become an advocate for other young people with struggles like her own. Really, she's turned it all around and she's helping others. Every time I talk to her, she's telling me about who she's helping next. But even after our family's crisis subsided, we could not forget how afraid and how helpless we felt, and how difficult Kiara's journey was. We all knew we had to do something, everything possible to help other families struggling with mental illness, especially those who don't have the same advantages that we do. Because we were lucky, we had a network, we had insurance, we had people we could turn to, and that was tough. But imagine people who don't have any of that. So going forward, well, you know now, for Kiara it means social work. She's gonna be one of y'all. You'll be part of my family. And for Bill and me, it means working with our colleagues to make New York City a global leader in mental health. Right? Why not? Since Bill took office, the de Blasio administration has committed approximately $350 million in additional mental health funding over the next 3 years. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and those dollars are going to go towards things like placing licensed clinical social workers in all of the city's 72 contracted family shelters. And these dedicated professionals, yes, please. These dedicated professionals in these family shelters will support 8,900 families who are homeless. And this money will go towards expanded access to effective treatment in jail, so people have a real chance at rehabilitation. It will go towards providing staff at community-based organizations with training on how to identify clients who might be dealing with a mental health condition, how to lead peer groups, and how to teach their clients how to teach their clients coping skills so they can do the work. In short, this money will go towards providing social workers and other mental health professionals with the resources you need to help people where they need help and when they need help. But as you know, money cannot fix everything. What we desperately need is a citywide plan of action, because we don't have a system, right? We've got services, we've got great people, excellent programs, but it's all fragmented, right? It's kind of catch as catch can. So we need a citywide plan. Back in January, I announced that the city will develop a roadmap for mental health. The roadmap will quantify the challenges we face, because every New Yorker needs to know what we're facing in terms of this crisis. The crisis that affects at least 1 in 5 adult New Yorkers in any given year. Who knows, the number is probably a little higher. And what is the cost when people don't get the treatment they need? We spend a lot of money, people going into jail, into the hospital, into the shelter, and then all around again. It's a lot of money, and then they're not getting any treatment. And that's not right. It's not right, it costs us a lot of money, those dollars could be much better spent. The roadmap will establish the principles that will guide our effort to meet the mental health challenges that we face. Some of those principles, some of those principles are like act early, something that all of you know. Act early. It's easier to grow a healthy child than it is to mend a broken adult, right? And we know we have to partner with our communities. We need cultural competency. This is a big city. This is New York. Come on, we've got people speaking every kind of language, all these religions, ethnicities. We need to partner with our community-based organizations and better in our communities, better than we have. And clergy is a part of this as well. There's so many groups, organizations that are on the front lines of this crisis that we need to engage. Now I'm not going to tell you all the principles because I don't want to spill all the beans, but, but those are two of them. The roadmap will also present an array of solutions that build on the principles that we will present. And the roadmap will lay out a plan for achieving long-term change. Because we didn't get into this situation overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight, but we need a plan. We got to lay it out so that we can change the way we address mental health, change the culture of stigma, change the way our structures work so that they're actually helping people and not helping, everything else. So since the announcement, I've been traveling all over the city, talking to people on the front lines about what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be fixed. And I've met so many remarkable New Yorkers who are giving everything to this work. Many of them don't get paid as much as they should. Many of them don't get nearly enough training or support for what is one of the toughest jobs in the city. Many of them have great ideas that have gone unheard for too long. Far too long. And you won't be surprised to learn that many of these New Yorkers that I'm talking about are social workers. I've never met a social worker who was not inspiring. I've never met a social worker who did not have a compelling story to tell. And tonight I'd like to share 3 of them with you. Roy Kearse is a licensed clinical social worker who works at Samaritan Village and spoke movingly about the substance abuse treatment programs they provide to veterans. Roy also happens to be a vice president at NASW, and he's here with us tonight. Stand up, Roy. Thank you for your service, Roy. Also in my travels, I met Isabel Ching, an MSW who taught me about how she and her colleagues at Hamilton Madison House use tools like origami to help seniors deal with depression. And I met Yahira Valencia, an LCSW who works with young people at MS-118 in the Bronx. And while visiting MS-118, I had a great conversation with Yahira and a mother I'm going to call Gloria. Gloria emigrated here from Mexico and gave birth to 3 daughters. Unfortunately, their father was abusive. Eventually, Gloria summoned up enough courage to leave the father of her children, but the violence he inflicted on the family left very deep emotional scars. One of Gloria's daughters, who I will call Teresa, began harming herself and had to be hospitalized multiple times. Luckily, Teresa's teachers were aware of the situation and referred her to the school-based mental health clinic. Teresa and Gloria began working with Yahira, who was born in El Salvador and grew up in Highbridge. Yahira spoke their language, and I mean that literally and figuratively. She provided Teresa with cognitive behavioral therapy and helped her work through the trauma. And eventually, family life started to get better. Back in June, Teresa graduated from MS-118. And she didn't just graduate, she graduated with honors. And I know this is a familiar story to all of you. New York City's social workers are the co-authors of countless success stories, countless. And that's why we're so committed to making sure the roadmap is inclusive. We're making sure that social workers have a significant role. So social workers like Roy and Isabel and Yahira, we need you. So I'm just going to put it to you. I'm not here just to make a speech and to shake your hands and love you up. I'm here to recruit you. In order to close the gaps that we have, the many gaps in our mental health system, we need New York City social workers by our side to help us continue the public conversation about mental health in our city. We need you. We need you to continue sharing your hard-won expertise. And we need you to establish an even bigger presence in those communities that have been hit hardest by the mental health crisis. New York City social workers, and organizations like NASW are among our most valuable resources. You are already vital to the de Blasio administration. You're helping us access the new affordable housing you're building. You're helping us on the front lines of an effort to make sure that people aren't illegally evicted. You're helping us create more humane and welcoming homeless shelters where families can find both hope and guidance in their greatest time of need. And you are helping us provide New Yorkers with municipal IDs, an essential tool for undocumented immigrants trying to establish a new life here. Tonight, I ask you to play a central role in our next push, a major push, creating an effective mental health system. It's a big ask, to be sure, very big. But I hope you'll answer the call, just like you answered the call that led you to social work in the first place. Jane Addams, one of America's better-known social workers, once said that action indeed is the sole medium of expression for ethics. I believe that's true. And I believe that that makes all of you role models and heroes, not just for Kiara and other aspiring social workers, but for everyone who recognizes that service is an essential part of life. So on behalf of Mayor de Blasio and the City of New York, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you do, for all your hard work. And please have a great night. You deserve it.